Okay, hi everybody. My name is Elise Rank, and I'm doing my presentation on keylogging. I noticed that it was one of the attacks mentioned in the textbook, but it wasn't really expanded on very much, so I wanted to dive a little deeper into my research and learn a little bit more about it. So, what is a keylogger? A keylogger, or a keystroke logger keyboard capturing, is a form of malware or hardware that keeps track of and records your keystrokes as you type. It takes information and sends it to a hacker using a command and control server. So a pretty straightforward definition. How the attack works depends on the type of keylogger, and there are three types of keyloggers, and the type determines pretty much just how the malware is installed and how the hacker obtains information and how it's downloaded. So for all three types, the keylogger runs in the background unnoticed. It monitors and records the victim's keystrokes, and the data is either transmitted to the attacker's remote server or stored in the hardware. So obviously if it's stored in the hardware, that's going to be a hardware-based keylogger. And these can take the form of physical bugs actually placed in the keyboard. They can be USB sticks, wall chargers, and the dangerous thing about hardware-based keyloggers is that security software can't detect them because it's not software-based. So you would have to physically inspect the computer or whatever the device is in order to make sure that there are no hardware-based keyloggers affecting the system. And then software-based keyloggers are the most common. They are installed on the computer system through infected email attachments, malicious downloads, or by exploiting vulnerabilities in the software. And then web-based keyloggers are also particularly stealthy because there's no installation whatsoever required. Attackers just exploit vulnerabilities in websites or browsers, and these keyloggers can be hidden in web pages, JavaScript code, or browser extensions and add-ons, and they are distributed through phishing emails, malicious ads, and compromised websites. So basically, once the hacker obtains this information, they can piece together, using the keystrokes, they can piece together passwords, financial information, chat messages even, and other personal information, and the victim could be completely oblivious to all of this that's happening. Next, some common targets. So anybody can be a victim of keylogging due to the wide reach of like mass phishing emails. Hackers can affect just about anyone if they fall for it. But if attackers do take a more calculated approach, they can do even more severe damage. So this might look like attacking web browsers specifically for login credentials and sensitive information entered on websites. Financial institutions are one of the biggest targets. And then the attacker's own company. Basically, say the hacker works in an office and they want to attack the computer next to them. That's a convenient proximity for hardware-based, which is harder to detect. And then they can also use the knowledge that they have in their company and combine it with possibly knowledge that they obtain from their higher-ups, like their bosses, their managers, and attack their own company. And we've learned in the textbook that internal threats are the biggest threats because they already have partial access to sensitive information. Another common target can be a government entity. So whether it be political, economic, or military, like this is important information related to our nation. So those are also big targets. And then finally, political activists or journalists. So if the attacker has a certain political agenda, they can use keylogging to attack those as well. Moving on to historical effectiveness and real-world examples. So historically, keylogging has been a successful way for hackers to cause significant financial losses and intellectual property theft. On top of that, it is one of the more difficult attacks to detect, as opposed to like social engineering, for example. And then some real-world examples. Finfisher was originated in 2007, and it's a surveillance spyware that involves keylogging and other surveillance techniques. It's been used by governments and law enforcement agencies worldwide, raising concerns about human rights abuses and privacy violations. So normally we think of a hacker as a random citizen, but even governments themselves use these techniques, even to protect our country. And then another example is Zeus. This also originated in 2007. It targeted a wide range of organizations, including major banks, financial institutions, and online payment systems. And this one in particular, caused substantial financial loss. Next, some prevention strategies. So a lot of these are pretty straightforward. Antivirus software and firewalls, obviously, but of course that's only going to detect your software-based keyloggers. So I would add on to this in order to defend against hardware-based keyloggers, just physical inspection here and there. Virtual keyboards. So since keyloggers, they detect your keystrokes, but if you're not actually using your keyboard, there are no keystrokes to detect. So I believe Mac and Windows both have features. I think you can access them through their settings, where you can pull up a virtual keyboard. And so obviously, like, that's a bit of a hassle, but if you feel it's necessary and you want to make sure that you're defending against keyloggers, that's a safer way to do that. Autofill passwords. We sometimes see these generated by the device that you're using when you are creating a new account. Your device will generate its own complex password. So you don't even have to put your own password in, which means you're not using your keyboard. So there will be no keystrokes to detect. And since they're typically super complex passwords, they'll be harder to track. And then multi-factor authentication. So even if keyloggers do track your password, they're likely to be deterred by the second phase of authentication. And then just pay attention. Phishing emails they're one of the most common ways for keyloggers or hackers to deploy keylogging. So don't succumb to those emails. And then also monitor your financial accounts, make sure nothing is abnormal. And then these are my sources. Thank you.